This is Local Edition. I'm Brad Pomerance in Sacramento today, and we are joined by Ed Hernandez, member of the California State Senate, chairman of Senate Health. I'd like to speak with you about an issue connected to Medi-Cal, Medicaid. It's a little inside baseball, but basically the federal government has told California that if we are to impose a tax on plans that provide Medicaid, Medi-Cal, we need to have that tax apply to everyone, all health plans, which we don't do now. So what is California doing? Because if we don't do that, we're going to lose some federal funding.
You are correct. So in the past, we've had MCO taxes that have always been approved.
Meaning?
The Medi-Cal tax.
Got it.
So in the past, we've had it, but it was only we were taxing the entities that accepted Medi-Cal, and we'd offset it by bringing in federal dollars.
Okay.
Well, the federal government has changed the rules. They said you can't do that. If you're going to do that,
Why?
well, because they wanted that everybody gets taxed. So
Okay.
you can't have just one entity or one group of providers or health plans benefit. So knowing that now, that's the new rule, we had the administration as well as the legislature is in special session, as you know.
Yes.
And we've figured out a mechanism to have what's called a tiered tax, and we're going to replace the MCO with other taxes to offset their losses.
Okay.
And hopefully we can have an agreement, and I'm hoping it's very, very soon.
Right.
That's the most important thing.
So all entities, all health plans will be taxed.
Right.
But I guess the goal is to try to create a scenario whereby the new tax is revenue neutral or even positive
Right.
for the entities that had not been taxed.
Right.
Now, this is a tax, so we need a 2/3 vote. As we speak today, the Democrats do not have a supermajority in either house. So you'll need some of your friends in the Republican caucus to vote for this. As we speak today, some of them have come out strongly against, others are really not sure where they are on this. How do you speak with your friends about this?
So I'm optimistic, and I'm
Okay.
optimistic because we've done this in the past where they have voted on an MCO, a Medicaid tax, and it is a tax.
Right.
And I'm optimistic because I believe the chamber is going to be supportive.
I see.
The plans are looking at it. I think they're
Right.
going to be supportive. But the message I would have to the Republicans, this is not a tax on a plan, this is tax reform. Because if you look at the overall money
Right.
that comes in, that's offset, there's a net positive. So it's really tax reform.
And one could argue if we do not reform this element, we will lose over $1 billion in federal funding. And I would presume that no one in the legislature would want to see a loss of $1 billion.
Yeah, no, and I agree. So, and I think the Republicans realize that. So is whatever money's available, even though the economy's good, $1.2 or $1.3 billion is still an awful lot of money that is not going to be available, that we're going to have to take it from somewhere else. And these are programs that the Republicans may want just as well.
I want to speak about one of your passion projects, and it deals with the use of tobacco products, not vaping. We'll talk about that momentarily. These are traditional cigarettes. You carried a bill last year that would increase the age in which someone can buy tobacco products to 21. That's a bold move. It got some legs, but ultimately did not make it through, but it's still percolating in this health care special session. What's your policy reason behind this bill?
Here's my reason. So if you look at what's going on right now in this country with the abuse and use and addiction of tobacco, but more importantly, the cost to our healthcare system. Now I am telling you, as a resident and consumer of this country, of this state, that in this country, you're required to buy health insurance. Well, guess what? What you're paying is going to offset the cost of these people that are dying of cancer, lung disease. So I think it's incumbent that we figure out how we get people off tobacco and not get addicted to nicotine. It does two things. Number one, it'll lower the cost of our health care in the long run, but more importantly, it'll save lives.
But the argument goes, look, at the age of 18, you can fight for our country, you can die for our country, you can vote in our country. I mean, I know alcohol is the age is 21, but one could argue that maybe we should lower the alcohol age to 18 if you could do all those things.
No, I agree, but I give you the counter argument. At 18, you can't drink alcohol, and I know that they're saying that in the military, if you go to war, well, guess what? Well, in Hawaii, where they did change it to 21, the smoking age, the state of Hawaii said they will follow the law of the state of Hawaii and require that their individuals who are in the base also have to do the same thing.
For smoking.
For smoking as well.
I want to mention vaping. I'm going to be honest with you, and I try not to express personal opinions, but it seems to me that if someone is vaping, even with nicotine in the liquid, that's a lot better than if they're consuming tobacco smoke. But there does seem to be a war against vaping, and I'm wondering whether this war is misplaced.
So let's talk about that. All right. So if you look at nicotine, it is an addictive product.
Yes.
Okay. So they're going to. Okay. You can argue that they're not going to be smoking. They're not going to have.
Think about the tar that they're
the
not taking
tar.
in.
All the stuff in their lungs. I get it, but at the end of the day, you still have to have some consumer protection. This is an industry that has absolutely no state or federal regulation, and also on the flip side, if you look at big tobacco. The vaping products at one time were majority owned by small companies. The large tobacco industry is now buying them up because they know that once they get addicted to nicotine, they now have a customer for life, and they're looking for individuals to get addicted so that they can eventually.
So you think it's a reverse gateway in effect?
I believe
you're concerned not so much that people are going down to vaping, but people will go up to tobacco.
Either up to tobacco or a way for them to get addicted to nicotine. And honestly, it's supposedly an aerosol. Do you really know what's in that aerosol? Yeah, nicotine's in it, but how do you know what else is in it?
So for argument's sake, if we regulated the vape liquid, the vapor device, so that we do have certain consumer protections, would it still not be better than that tobacco product where you're putting in tar? I mean, it's the tar that is the most dangerous. Am I right, sir?
No, you're right. But also, wouldn't you as a consumer want to know what's in it? What would you do if, let's say, you had a son or a daughter that was vaping, and then all of a sudden you found out it had formaldehyde?
But can we get to a place where we do know that?
That's what we should, because you're going to have, it'll be regulated, you'll know what's in it. But what are you going to do if you find out, okay, let's say it's nicotine. Yeah, okay, it's not good. But what if you find out there is a product in that aerosol that causes cancer to your children?
Right.
Would you want your kids?
Of course not. So, but I guess what I'm wondering is, if we get to the place where we know what's in the product, we absolutely know what's in the product. There's nicotine, there's not nicotine, there's THC, whatever it may be. Can we then get to a place where vaping is not seen as negatively as it is today? Because look, just from my perspective, it just seems better than tobacco.
Well, I would still disagree, because at the end of the day, you're now inhaling something that's an addictive product, whether we agree or disagree. But as I said, you have to make sure the public knows this.
Right.
But I think whether it's the legislature, but I think the public as a whole thinks of this negatively. I mean,
Do they?
I get a sense that they do.
Because if I'm out and about and someone is vaping, it doesn't feel as intrusive. It's not that tar smoke.
Right.
And most of the time, the people I see vaping are former tobacco smokers. I mean, they're trying to break the habit. And that's why I just am, I push you on this. If it's a gateway in the reverse to get you off tobacco, shouldn't we encourage that?
But here's the thing. Do we really know the numbers? And is there scientific evidence that a certain percentage of people are going the other direction? Show me that. And I would say, okay, then I agree or I disagree.
Right.
But you're giving me anecdotal evidence and
Indeed.
your personal opinion,
Indeed.
and I'm giving you my personal
Indeed.
opinion. So show me the evidence.
So do you feel as if in the final analysis we are going to engage in that evidence gathering?
Well, let's do. We should. We should know, first of all, what's in there. We should regulate it for consumer protection.
Right.
And the public should know what they're vaping.
His name is Ed Hernandez. He is a member of the California State Senate, the chair of the Senate Health Committee. I'm Brad Pomerance. This is Local Edition from Sacramento.